Another theist who wants to talk to us. We got Joe calling in from Virginia, I believe. I still don't know all my state codes. You'd think I'd know it by now by doing this for however long. But yeah, Joe, you are live on Talk Heathen now. What's up?
Hey, how are you, Dan and J. Mike? I actually
Good.
called your show one time before. I don't know if you remember. It was with Ross, I think.
Oh, cool. Yeah. No, that was awesome. What's up, Joe?
A couple months ago. Okay, so is it all right if I challenge you guys on any of your beliefs? Or just
That's what we're here for. Go ahead.
All right. The first question I wanted to ask is, so let's say there's like a casino bet, and the casino bet says, there's one side, God exists, another side, God doesn't exist. Now, where would you place your money? Would you place a little money, a lot of money that either God doesn't exist, or would you withhold betting?
It sounds like I'm being pedantic. I promise you I'm not. Can you define God really quickly?
Yeah, that was going to be my question too.
Okay. Yeah, well, I would say probably the...
I'll put it to you this way. If we're going to say Yahweh, I would bet against it.
I'm talking about a mind, like an immaterial...
I'd be doubling your bet, Dan.
Everything.
An immaterial mind?
Yeah, that's generally what God is believed to be. An immaterial mind that created everything outside of itself.
I mean...
Do we have to? So my thing is that I'm not going to bet on something I don't know. But if you're saying guns to my head, I have to bet. I'm not betting on the side of the immaterial for which has never been demonstrated. There's literally a data set of 0. So if I'm going to be a smart guy to bet money, I don't think I'm going to take the bet on something from which has never been substantiated. Now, if I can make the smarter choice, I would say I don't have enough information to conclude one way. But all I would say, given the fact that I have to choose, is I'm choosing the one that has something demonstrated as opposed to something that does not. It's not my problem that the immaterial hasn't been demonstrated. That's the problem. That's the problem of the claimant.
I feel the same way, J. Mike. It's like if it's hard for me to even conceive what an immaterial mind is, because if I don't even know if that's even a possible thing, then I don't know how I could bet on its reality or not. Like I certainly haven't seen one, and I guess that's kind of the point of an immaterial mind. But I wouldn't even know what that would look like or how that would affect reality in any meaningful way. So yeah, I don't know. Do we have to pick in order for this thought experiment to work? Like where are we going with this?
Well, I mean, generally, like the atheists, at least what I hear is they say, like, I think this is a good to see where, how confident that you are in your beliefs, whether God exists or God doesn't exist. If you don't believe God exists, then you put all your money.
But here's the thing, though, Joe. I don't think if you ask the average person on the street if they believe that God is an immaterial mind, like I don't know if that's where they would go to. You know what I mean? Like I think that's a very specific definition of God. That's not going to be in the everyday parlance.
How would you define God then, or J. Mike? How do you think most people define God?
Well, I take an atheist position on this, and then I don't make any particular claims to God. I let other people make those claims, and I determine from there whether or not I think they're more or less real. When it comes to like the historical Christian God, Yahweh, like I definitely don't think that that's real. I think you can demonstrate the historical origins of where those ideas come from, and demonstrate with relative certainty that they're human constructs. But if we're talking about abstract philosophical gods, then I don't hold any. How define Yahweh? The God of Christianity, with all of his characteristics.
What are his characteristics that people define?
Well, hold on. I think that's the problem right now, right? That you're asking us to define something. That's not our problem. If I tell you allele frequencies change in a population over time, and you don't know what alleles are, right? Then because I'm making the claim that allele frequencies change over time, I have to explain that to you and ask you through the best way that I can explain using language what that actually refers to in reality, and see if you think the proposition is true or not. The fact that you or someone else has ill-defined the proposition, that's not my problem. I'm going to move on to the next claim, because if someone says, do you believe in unicorns or something? What's a unicorn? They're like, well, it's an immaterial horse thing. It's like, well, Well, yeah, then I don't believe in that. But if you're asking me, hey, do you believe this proposition based on how you define it? It just doesn't make any sense. It's dependent upon the claimant to define what it is that they're talking about. And if it's indistinguishable from a word I just made up, like blah, 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 well, then we're not talking about anything, and it's just a waste of my time. And nothing against you on that. It's just this, to me, it's like if you make a proposition, you have to define that. It's not for me to play the guessing game on what you mean.
Right.
Okay, let's move with that. This question didn't go anywhere, so. But anyway, I didn't make a claim. I just asked a question whether you count God exists. God, usually atheists believe God doesn't exist. So.
Sure, I'm just saying if someone's going to make the actual claim, then they have to define it. Like, they don't get off the hook in virtue of them not well defining it. That's the problem. The problem is in virtue of them not defining it is the fact that I don't have to give my answer to the true or false value of the proposition because I don't know what I'm stating is true or false in the first place because the claimant hasn't well defined what they're purporting. So it just comes down to that. Like
I don't think this question didn't really go anywhere. So would the resurrection for Christ be evidence for Christianity and God or no?
Would the resurrection be evidence for Christ and Christianity?
If you claim that Jesus rose from the dead and that's what Christianity is based on, sure. I mean, you could lend some evidence to that. The aspect of why it happened is a different question. It could be something not related to a God at all for the reason. And that's what I would state that really honestly, a natural explanation, let's say aliens just zapped up Jesus away. I find that to actually have some implicit basis in the fact that there are organisms that live on planets. There are organisms that have lived on planets that have gone to other planets, being us, right? So to think that I couldn't extrapolate that in a natural sense of that happening, sure, absolutely astronomically not likely. But when we compare the astronomically unlikely, which has a data set of at least some implicit basis, to something of people rising from the dead because of an immaterial God, there's a zero on that side. So like, I can't even dictate what the cause you say is. But for the sake of the argument, if like you're just saying, oh, Jesus rose, well, yeah, you'd have to provide the actual evidence for that. We can't just merely assert it.
Yeah, I have nothing to add. I agree.
Okay, so Dan, I know, Dan, you told me last time that if somebody grew arms out, if somebody prayed in like Jesus' name, then you'd believe that's evidence for God.
I mean, like when we say evidence, that doesn't mean, yes, I'm automatically convinced of a God. That might be like, it might lend credibility towards a claim. I think that's what that would mean. But like at the same time, it's only going to be a matter of time until like scientists are going to be able to do something similar. So, there could be multiple explanations for why we actually see something. The God claim would just be one of many possible conclusions there for, explanations rather.
Okay.
Here's the other thing too. I've never actually seen anybody grow a limb, so we got to start there first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it possible to have an infinite regress of temporal events back into the past?
I don't take that position personally. I don't. I think infinity isn't like a quantity. It's more so a concept that's utilized. It's not like an actual quantity of something. So yeah. I would say like an infinite regression just is not where I would sign up for. I would
feel similarly, J Mike. I think infinity is often a misused word when we're talking about very complicated physics and stuff. And it's in the colloquial sense, we just mean it as a concept. It's not like an actual like destination necessarily. So
if there can't be an infinite series of events before now, it must be a finite series of events, right?
Well, I don't know, to be honest with you. What's your point?
Well, you said there's no infinite, so it has to be finite.
Well, no, I didn't say there's no infinite. It's just that what we mean by infinite might be different from what the average person means from infinite. So, like,
what do you mean by infinite?
Well, again, infinite
without limits. It goes on forever.
Yeah, it's something that it's more of a descriptor of something. It's not like it's not an exact.
It's not an achievable quantity.
Right. Yeah.
You can't achieve infinity. It wouldn't make any sense. But none of that lends credit to some supernatural being. So how do you get there?
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to go through the, I didn't say it did. I just said that if it's not infinite, it must be finite, correct?
I mean, possibly, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to make declarative claims, especially with physics and things like that, because I'm not a physicist.
Yeah.
So
Are we talking about the universe? We're talking about like everything? What are we saying?
It's a philosophical argument. It's a philosophical argument, that the series of temporal events cannot go back. There can't be an infinite series before now.
Okay, sure. We'll grant it. Now what?
Yeah. Like.
Okay, so that means there must be a first event, correct?
No. Okay.
Okay.
So like,
so that's why I was trying to get you to grant it.
If like, so I don't know if we can say that there's anything like before it. I don't know if we can say there's anything before time, or if it makes sense to say at the beginning of time, like talking about anything existing outside of time. I don't know, and
well, there's also an issue assuming cause and effect here is somehow fundamental. Whereas
right.
I'm going to take this will get down to like what we talk about causal principles. My initial item, if I go there, which I don't think we can a priori really do, so I've kind of backed off this a little bit, but like even if it was the case, like I have this necessary natural singularity at the beginning, I don't think the causal principle applies in the same way. So I'm going to say that causation after t equals 0 is an emergent property. It's not fundamental. Right. It's not. And there's even concepts of people talking about when we go back to t equals 0, like what that means for expansion, slowdown, things at this rate, to whether we even achieve 0. So there's a lot of different philosophical arguments you could take. Some that seem absolutely absurd. They seem to go against your intuition. Yeah. But the thing is, I've learned that intuition doesn't matter, nor does it allow someone to go, okay, finite temporal series, therefore there must be intent, because that's where I feel like you're going to lead to.
Or cause. I was thinking first cause is where this was.
Well, even cause, it's like, it's just intent is where I feel like it's always ends up going in the first place. And that's the premise you have to demonstrate. Otherwise, I'm just speculating and I don't really care because I don't have access to t equals 0. I think I'd be showing a lot of hubris if I thought that was the case.
Yeah, cause also.
What do you mean? What do you mean by t? What do you mean by t equals 0?
Like the singularity point, like right after the emergent of space-time, things like that.
Did the singularity point? I'm not a scientist or anything, so did the singularity point always?
Neither are we.
Neither are we. That's kind of the point I'm making. This is all just would be speculatory, but what would matter in terms of like why we do the show and things like that is getting down to some supernatural or God belief. And so if we just not skip it, I don't want to sound rude, but we get to it, it seems like, and I could be wrong, but it seems like we go to the first cause thing, which even if I just grant to you for whatever reason, you still have the premise, if you're going to relate this back to a God, of intent. And so I don't mind, like this is what I say with people I have conversations with, whether it's like a Thomist and they're talking about potentiality and actualizations, or the prime mover, or any of these things. Like I might be able to hold your hand down these arguments just to see where it goes. But I don't see any reason to assert that the cause or whatever you claim has intent. That is a non sequitur. Every single time it's a non sequitur because there's no premise that's substantiated. It's just, I got this far in the argument, and then the conclusion, I'm going to skip a few premises to justify that and go there. It's kind of like the description normative thing where you just go from an is to a not without justifying the why. Yeah.
There's also the weird thing of talking about causes outside of like temporality, because like cause kind of implies that there is like something happening before, like, which implies like time, right? So I don't know what it would mean to say something happening before time or anything like that, which is where these arguments typically go. We haven't gotten there yet, but like that's another thing that's kind of irksome, because it's like applying to the set, applying to the whole, something that doesn't apply to itself. Or no, that's not what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm trying to say? Like we can't talk about things happening outside of time and use the language of time to describe it. It doesn't make the same kind of sense. But anyway, did you have other stuff you want to say? I think there was like 5 different things you were trying to go through, right?
Do you have a couple more minutes? Just a couple more questions?
I'll give you one more question, but we do have some other callers here.
Okay. Do you think there are reasons why people may not want God to exist?
Yeah. Sure. Why? Well, if we're talking about the Christian God, he would be oppressive. He would be genocidal. he would not have humanity's best interest in mind. He would have, his own best interest at mind, which isn't always great for humans. And the Bible is evidence of that. It's a book that records lots of deaths and lots of torture and lots of awful things happening to people by the will of God. So I wouldn't want any of that to harm me or the people I love. So that would be a reason, if we're talking specifically again about Yahweh.
Okay, so that might affect the way you believe if you don't want something to be true.
If you're implying that I have a vendetta against God not being real, I take offense to that, first of all. But also, I mean, there's also lots of reasons why you shouldn't believe in God, not because it's inconvenient for it to be true. Like, people, I mean, hell, this whole show has reasons as to why, if you look back on some of these episodes here. So, this kind of stereotyping of atheists and non-believers is a problem. And I'm not going to just stand here and say, like, oh yeah, it's because I don't want God to be true. Like, I encourage you to look at the history of my work and J Mike's work and other people's work to see, like, why we really don't believe this stuff. I promise you, it's more than just we don't want this to be true for psychological reasons.
I don't understand why you would take offense to that.
Because it's a stereotype that plagues our community, Joe. It's like people who watch this show right now can tell you they've been bullied by family members and friends for saying that they don't believe the same thing you do because, oh, you're just mad at God. You just have a problem. You just want to sin. Like, it all falls into these kind of category of arguments where there's a personal problem being discussed rather than just saying, no, the arguments are just bad. Like, they just don't make sense. You can't demonstrate.
Yeah. And people psychoanalyze. Like, I know, Dan, you've had this issue, right? Like, people have tried to, like, write about things and your intentions.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so, like, they try to psychoanalyze you. And I've seen things like that. It's like, that's why what Dan's saying is that rightfully is offensive. He's, especially him, he's had to read things that people just assume about him, as opposed to attacking the actual argument at which or the counter argument at which he doesn't.
And let me tell you, the atheist experience is 10 times ruder than anything that I ever said to you. So you said.
Well,
I would disagree. The atheist experience isn't rude. People
like people like absolute trash. And
hey, Joe, I'm gonna drop this call. First of all, I don't host the Atheist Experience, so I don't know why the fuck you're complaining to me or J-Bike. All right, but besides that, look, one rude atheist show is nothing compared to the history that Christianity has with oppressing people. Absolutely nothing on that. Okay, if you don't like that some YouTube channel is live streaming on a Sunday complaining about the shit that Christians do all the time, like, I encourage you to look at your own life and look at what your beliefs and how other people have interpreted those beliefs and look at the harm that's caused in the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so inconvenient in that sense for him, but like, my roommates had to go out of state to get married because it wasn't federally allowed for them to get married, right? So it's like the oppression and the things that this has caused, or the reason why people believe these things stem from these beliefs. And I can't add anything to what you said there, Dan. I think that's right on the money.